Janice Thornburn steps into limbo, seeking out his father, Alvar Thornburn, who is bound here as punishment for instigating the Second Great Mob War. He finds Alvar exactly where he left him, slumped over with his head resting on his arms and knees. "Father," Janice calls softly. "It's me. I've come to talk." Alvar lifts his gaze, shooting a venomous look at his son. "What do you want now, you little brat?" he snarls. "Haven't you caused enough damage?" Janice exhales deeply, aware that this conversation would be a challenge, given his father's obstinacy. Yet he knew it was crucial for both their sakes. "Father, that's not true. I didn't ruin anything. The chaos that unfolded is because you chose to inflict pain on those who had nothing to do with it," he replied, striving to remain unaffected by Alvar's harsh words. "You have no idea what you're talking about, Janice," Alvar retorted, his glare filled with contempt. "I do understand. You're trying to make others pay for Mother's death, but inflicting more suffering won't bring her back. You know that," Janice insisted. "Do you really think I'm that ignorant? That I don't realize that?" Alvar shot back, his pride wounded by the implication that he was foolish. "I never claimed you were," Janice replied, maintaining his composure. "But how can you let your hatred fuel this war? Do you take pleasure in being so utterly malevolent?" Alvar's lips curled into a smirk. "So, you do see me as evil? Perhaps you're not as foolish as I once believed," he chuckled. "Father, please, this isn't a joke. I genuinely want to understand your reasoning behind your actions," Janice said, his patience wearing thin. "My reasoning, huh?" Alvar scoffed, rolling his eyes. "Fine, I'll share my reasoning. After those cursed Illagers took your mother, my wife, I lost yet another source of love and support. Losing Yuna had already driven me deeper into madness, and I wanted those gray-skinned brutes to experience the same agony I felt when they stole my wife from me. I can't fathom how you, her son, can stand there without feeling the same pain after losing the woman who brought you into this world. How can you act like her death doesn't affect you like it does me?" Alvar's voice erupted with fury, leaving Janice stunned. Did Alvar truly believe he was indifferent to his mother's death? And besides, you wouldn't understand loss at all. You still have that ordinary woman as your wife. Janice felt a surge of irritation. "You think I haven't faced loss?" he shot back. "You think I don't care about losing Mother?" Alvar rose and moved closer to his son. "Don't you dare speak to me like that, runt." "I am your father," he hissed, venom lacing his words. "I am not a child anymore, father," Janice declared, his eyes blazing with defiance. "And keep Beatrix out of this. Just because she doesn't come from a royal background like us doesn't give you the right to look down on her. She is beneath me, and she is beneath you too. You have no idea what I've endured," Alvar retorted sharply. "I do know," Janice replied, struggling to maintain his composure. "Oh, really? Who have you lost?" Alvar pressed, irritation evident in his voice. "I lost my daughter, Natalie," Janice admitted, his voice trembling. "That little whore you allowed to marry and bear a child with a filthy Illager." Alvar exploded. "My daughter is not a whore, father," Janice shouted, finally losing his temper. "I let Thord be with her because, unlike you, I cared about my children's happiness. I'm proud that I never treated her or my other daughter, Toby, the way you treated me." Alvar's voice was filled with frustration as he exclaimed, "I treated you the way I did because I believed it was what you needed, what our family needed. But you chose to throw it all away for some ordinary woman who doesn't even understand the responsibilities of being part of a royal family," he continued. "I never mistreated you, and you should be grateful I didn't treat you like my own wretched father treated me and your aunt." Janice raised an eyebrow, surprised. Alvar rarely brought up Herobrine or Cora in conversation. "What do you mean by that, father?" Janice inquired, curiosity piqued. Your grandfather was a cruel man. He always favored my sister. He viewed me as weak, soft, and unworthy of the throne. One day, when I fled to the Nether, he found me and threatened to drag me back home. Cora was with him, and he used her as leverage. When I refused to go back, he attacked me, but Cora stepped in front of him and... Alvar paused, his eyes closing as he relived the painful moment. He killed her right before my eyes. Janice felt a rush of disbelief wash over him. His grandfather had been the cause of his aunt's death. The realization hit him hard. After that moment, I was paralyzed with shock. I stood there wishing it was all just a terrible dream, hoping I would wake up. But it was all too real. Cora lay there, lifeless, surrounded by her own blood, a horrific wound in her chest from where father had struck her. Even he was stunned, unable to comprehend the gravity of his actions. I went home with him, carrying Cora's lifeless body, and I couldn't let myself cry in front of him. I knew that if I did, I would face his wrath. Janice was at a loss for words. Alvar had never shared this painful story before, and now he understood why. It was a haunting memory for his father. "Father, I'm so sorry. I had no idea," Janice began, but Alvar cut him off. "Of course you didn't, because I kept this from you on purpose. I didn't want you to grow up seeing your grandfather as a monster like I do. I wanted you to honor him for the good he did for your kingdom." He sighed heavily. Janice began to piece it all together. His father's demeanor stemmed from the loss of two people who had once loved him dearly. "But why didn't Grandma intervene to stop Grandpa from hurting you?" Janice pressed. Alvar turned away, retreating to his previous spot. "Because she left when I was 5, and Cora was just a toddler," he replied. "Father always said she despised us and wanted nothing to do with us, that she abandoned us." Alvar's voice was devoid of emotion. "I never believed him, though. I think he had a hand in her disappearance. I know she's out there somewhere, but I just don't know where." Janice pondered for a moment. "Did you ever ask Grandpa where she went?" he inquired. "He told me not to ask questions, and after he died, he took that secret with him to the grave," Alvar responded.